What is the difference between product backlog and sprint backlog? Many times sprint is called iteration as well, then iteration backlog. So the understanding is the product backlog is your running requirement collection. You keep exploring whatever you want to do in a product at some point in time. Maybe you are not even certain about it. You keep putting it into the product backlog. So product backlog contains all the things at some point in time you may want to work inside the product. It is like a longer list. Whereas a sprint backlog or iteration backlog contains the things which you are planning to do in a given time box. So the subset of the product backlog you take, you elaborate it further, and you define what you want to do in a given time box, where we call it sprint. That is your sprint backlog or iteration backlog. In agile way of working, we work in a little different manner. In our traditional project management mindset, you have all the requirements and you try to figure it out when these requirements can get finished. What is our end date? In agile way of working, we can say, yeah, we have requirements and they will keep coming and going. Let them stay in a product backlog and we need to figure it out. Identify a time box in which we do the work, say 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and we need to figure it out what can we do in these 2 weeks time. Yes, we have 100 things to do, but let's talk about what can get done in 2 weeks time. So the 100 things to do is your product backlog. We want to do all these things. And what can we do in these 2 weeks time, if that 2 weeks is my sprint duration or iteration duration, and I am thinking about some high priority items from those 100 items, and I am figuring out can we really do it in 2 weeks time, and if yes, how we will do it, who will do it, and let's have a plan for these 2 weeks in a little detailed manner, and that plan is called iteration/sprint backlog. So in the Scrum way of working, in the beginning of your time box, you do a sprint planning. If you call the time box iteration, you can call to iteration planning. In the iteration planning meeting, we discuss the current priorities. We may have a role called product owner who may come up and explain that these are the priority. Why I use the word may? Because I'm talking generic, not specific to Scrum. So we have a group who tells us what is the priority items here. And those priority items will get discussed and we see that can we do these things or how much we can do in the upcoming time box duration. And with the help of that discussions, we may come up with a detailed planning, and the result of that planning, the result of that planning meeting is your iteration backlog, sometimes also called iteration plan or sometimes also called sprint backlog. So that's the major source difference. Now a little bit mechanics. You can say product backlog is maintained in the Scrum world by the product owner. Someone who understands the requirement well, someone who is working with the stakeholders frequently, also collaborating with the team and taking care of what we want to do in this whole bigger list as a running list of requirements. So product owner will work there. Whereas sprint backlog or iteration backlog, which you prepared in a sprint planning/iteration planning meeting, the team is the one who owning it because it contains their work. It contains more about how they are going to implement some portion of a product backlog. So why we want to do it, what we want to do, that is something a product owner perspective, but how we want to do it, what kind of technological approach we will take is something a team member's approach, team as a whole team's approach. So that the sprint backlog/iteration backlog is owned by the team. It is having content which is in a team's language. It has estimations and details and all those things which helps the team to do their work in a better way. So the ownership of your iteration backlog/sprint backlog is also with the team. Now, type of items it has. The product backlog will have product backlog items. Many times you have a product backlog items as a user story, but it is not mandatory to have everything in a product backlog which is called user story. You can have other type of elements as well. But yeah, for a simplicity sake, you can say we have a list of requirements and some other work, but major portion might be a user story. Whereas in my iteration backlog/sprint backlog, I will have some user stories which we have picked up, but we may have more detailing about it. So we may have detailed task and activity. It depends. Team can figure it out how much detailing they need. If they feel that they don't need any detailing and they are good to do directly work on a product backlog item level, it is okay. But usually in general, we get into the details and we create more detailed tasks and activities, and we may get into better estimation than the product backlog level estimation, because we are figuring out what can we do in upcoming 2 weeks time. So that's how the element will change. The sprint backlog or iteration backlog will be influenced by what all work we have to do. Sometimes what all work we have to do is also defined with the help of definition of done. So in a simple understanding, you can say the product backlog is more like a requirement list. The sprint backlog or iteration backlog is more like an action list which will help us in achieving part of the product backlog in a defined time box.